Today, I want to focus on the most decision an entrepreneur has to make, identifying a business opportunity, because this is a huge decision for an entrepreneur. We will tackle this topic in two parts. In part one, we'll spend time defining what business opportunities are. And in part two, we will delve into how to spotting opportunities. Themba, do you have any news from this past week for our viewers?
Yes, I do have news for our viewers from the past week. I think let me focus on four. Start with inflation. Why is inflation important to all of us? Number one, inflation is very, very important because it's an enemy, particularly to anybody who is trying to build wealth. We need to beat inflation. That's why at all material times, we need to be watching the inflation number. So it's important from that point of view. But also number two, inflation, particularly when it gets to hyperinflation in territory, which has been the case in countries such as Zimbabwe, can actually be a destroyer of wealth. It can destroy wealth. So the good news that we received this week in South Africa is that inflation declined marginally from 5.6 in February 2024 to 5.3 in March 2024. The economists that were surveyed before the inflation result was announced, the expected inflation to be around 5.4%. And the fact that it came at 5.3% was actually a surprise welcome. So if inflation is going down, or if it's going down, the question that many people have been asking is, are we going to see interest rates coming down anytime, soon? My own view, given what the central bank has guided us, is that for the greater part of 2024, interest rates will probably remain as high as they are at the moment. And there are three reasons for this, Tafazo. In other words, three reasons why I don't expect that interest rates will be cut anytime soon. Number one, if I look at what has been happening to the rand since the beginning of the year, the rand has declined by something like 3.2% against the dollar this year. And obviously, if the rand depreciates, we may end up having imported inflation. Number two, in the past week, because of tensions in the Middle East, we have seen oil price. So increased oil prices may also translate to increased inflation, because diesel and petrol are very important inputs in business. But also number three, the drought that we're experiencing in Southern Africa might actually result in the price of staple goods, going up. So the long and short of it is that interest rates will be higher for a longer time. But it was good that inflation seems to be easing up. It's also very important to note, especially from a South African point of view, that the Reserve Bank, normally targets inflation to be below 4.5, which is the midpoint of their target range. So if it's at 5.3, my own view, given the indications that the central bank governor has given, is that they may not be keen to cut interest rates anytime soon. So that's the first thing. The other thing that got my attention, particularly in what the newspapers have been reporting, has been the pay packages of executives and entrepreneurs. So let me just focus with what newspapers have been saying as the pay amounts or pay packages that have been paid to executives in the banking sector, especially after some banks have released their results in this past week. So Mike Brown, who is the CEO of Nedbank, was paid in 2023 92.5 million. That's a huge amount of money, close to 100 million in 1 year. Sim Shabalala, who is the CEO of Standard Bank, had his remuneration increasing from 55.7 million to 83 million. That's a huge amount of money. And then the CEO for Nedbank, pay package was something like 40 million. Then if we go internationally, Tafazo, I'm interested in this week to see that Elon Musk, who is the CEO of Tesla, has actually submitted a proposal to shareholders to have a 50 billion pay package. So 50 billion being paid to one person. Obviously, these are clever people who deserve their money. But there are two things that I would want to raise from this. Number one, it pays to be an entrepreneur. The formula for paying entrepreneurs in this world is different. Imagine Elon Musk being an entrepreneur, being CEO of Tesla. If he receives this pay package of 50 billion, that's an amount of money that some of us, the majority of us, will never make in an entire lifetime. So let's just be very clear here. It pays to be an entrepreneur. It pays to be an executive. And the pay package of executives is determined totally different. But the second thought that I would want to raise from this is obviously, if we are paying entrepreneurs and executives in this month, there is always the possibility that the inequality gap will increase. In certain sectors of the economy in South Africa, particularly in the mining sector, we have seen some companies retrenching. So you've got companies retrenching, probably not in the banking sector, but I'm talking about the other sectors where commodity prices have come down, such as in mining. So if you've got, on the one hand, companies retrenching, and you've got, on the other hand, executives and entrepreneurs being paid these large amounts of money that we've spoken about, what then tends to happen is that the inequality gap will increase. And it further solidifies what we've said all along. We see increasing inequality in this world. And the only way to bridge that inequality gap is to encourage people to be entrepreneurs, to encourage people to succeed in their careers and get to the executive levels of organizations. So just a thought there. Then in this week, I was reading a report on MoneyWeb, which seems to be pointing out that in the past decades, the SA middle class has lost their wealth. In other words, they did comparisons of how much wealth had been gained by people in the middle class. And the overall conclusion from that report was that the middle class in South Africa has lost their wealth over a decade. Now, this is not surprising because if you look at a typical middle class family in South Africa, the majority of their wealth is tied up in physical property, that is in their home, and also in retirement savings. And those retirement savings are typically a pension fund or a retirement, annuity. So if we assume that a typical middle-class family has got a property and has got retirement savings, and those two constitute the majority of their wealth. If you look at what has been happening to house prices in the last 3 years, house price growth has not performed. In fact, it has underperformed inflation, especially in the last 3 years. If you look at some of the balanced funds, in terms of their performance, they also haven't outperformed inflation. So, which is why the middle class has lost, their wealth. Remember, the middle class is typically that segment of the population that is exposed to, to debt. In other words, the middle class tends to borrow, quite a lot. The insights that I got from this report is, number one, it's very, very important, for us to consider alternative asset classes in order to obviously increase our wealth. We all know property has not, particularly our homes, have not outperformed, inflation. The second insight is that as a middle class person, you cannot necessarily outsource the management of your wealth to an individual out there. I think as middle class people, we need to take an interest in the wealth that we are creating in our portfolios, which is why financial education is very, very important. Yes, we should have pension funds. Yes, we should buy homes. But beyond that, it's very, very important, given what is happening, to always look out for opportunities and have a side hustle somewhere, because what is inevitably going to happen if we are losing this world is that by the time we scheduled for retirement, we wouldn't have accumulated enough wealth to sustain us during those retirement years. So I've just found this to be very, very interesting. But what it also means is that as a middle class person, you don't need to wait until the decade is done for you to see whether you're creating wealth or you're not creating wealth. It's very important that on an annual basis, you set goals and you are able to see whether in a particular year you are beating inflation or you're not beating inflation. And you then look at ways, of preserving your wealth. Inflation is the benchmark. If you are not beating inflation, you are essentially going backwards, and the picture will not look good, especially when it comes to retirement. The last thing that I would want to talk about in this news segment is a report that I saw. It was titled, "SARS Knows What's Happening in Your Bank Account." I'm raising this to just warn all of us who might want to evade on their taxes that the South African Revenue Authority is sharpening its revenue collection tools, using all sorts of tools, and they are able to find out any discrepancies which are there in terms of the amounts that are going into our bank accounts and what we are declaring on our income tax returns. So if you give unsatisfactory answers to any queries which they might have, that may result in hefty penalties and in additional assessments being made. So it becomes very, very important that we render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but also that we are truthful in our declarations of tax, knowing that the way that financial systems are being set up is that tax authorities know what's happening in our bank account. So if you didn't know that for every deposit that you're making in your bank account, Big Brother is watching. At least today I have told you. Let me stop there, Tafadzwa, so that we move on to the next thing.
Thank you very much, Timba, for reminding us that the only way to bridge inequality is for people to be entrepreneurs and becoming executive. I like when Apostle Jerome Libert says, meet me at the top, the ground is overcrowded. So if we are all going to be executives and entrepreneurs, then I'm not sure who will remain on the ground, but it looks like that's the way to go. Our book for the week is The Opportunity Lenses, How to Spot Your Next Big Business Opportunity. What is the book all about? Also give us your thought for the day.
So Tefadzo, the book is all about how to spot your next big opportunity. I don't know if you have realized this, Tefadzo. You must have realized it, obviously, given all the books that we've read in this year, that the most important decision that an entrepreneur has to make is on which opportunity to pursue. The one thing that I liked about this book is that, number one, it gives an entrepreneur, an innovator, tools that they need to identify new opportunity in this, ever, ambiguous and complex business environment. So it gives you tools. I like books that give tools. I like books that give templates and frameworks. And this is one such book. They are not just defining what business opportunities are, but they are actually giving you tools. I think the essence behind this book is that as an entrepreneur, you need to be deliberate in terms of spotting opportunities. You need to be, conscious, in spotting opportunities, which takes me to my thought of the day. If you want to identify new opportunities, here we're talking about business opportunities, you need to get better at noticing things and decoding the forces that shape and reshape the business world. So what they're essentially saying there is that you must be always continuously looking at the forces of change. So this book talks about us, consciously noticing the forces of change. When the book starts, obviously they talk about the fact that we are living in a VUCA world. VUCA is in VUCA. We are living in a volatile, uncertain, chaotic world. And it's something that we learn in business school. Uncertainty is something that characterizes this business environment that we are operating in. But in spite of the volatility in the environment, you need to be noticing the forces of change. You need to be decoding those forces. And as a process of continuous inquiry, you then identify opportunities. I liked one thing about this book. They make a distinction between a business idea and an opportunity, something that I will define later on. The book was written by Mr. D. Tenney, Jerick Tenney, who is the founder of, Gordon Blanc. It's a brand that makes high quality t-shirts, which men, love to wear. So, this guy is an innovator, and he has come up with this book that, gives us the tools and methodologies on spotting the big business opportunity. So that's our book. I've gone through the book itself. There is quite a lot of content there. There's quite a number of ideas which we can talk about. I don't think we can do justice in one presentation or in one show to the content that is in the book. So that's why I suggested that probably we do it, in two parts. Right, Tafadzo.
Thank you, Temba. And if you have rightly said so, what is a business opportunity? And do business opportunities have characteristics?
Before I define what an opportunity is, Tafadzo, I was listening to an interview by a man that I respect very well. He's a Zimbabwean guy who is a billionaire. His name is Strive Masiyiwa. And when I listened to the interview, he indicated that when he was in university, he obviously is a telecommunications engineer. That's his background. He studied in the UK. When he was in university, he got to understand that there was a telecommunications revolution that was about to happen. And when he understood that, he was always on the lookout for an opportune moment to be part of that telecommunications, revolution. Strive has made his billions from starting a telecommunications company, a cell phone, company. And so he's one example of somebody who was able to identify an opportunity. The opportunity there was that we were moving from fixed telephony to basically cell phone technology, particularly GSM technology. I think that's what they call it in the cell phone, industry. So he was able to spot an opportunity probably before everyone else spotted that opportunity. Even the fixed telephony company in Zimbabwe, which had a monopoly, did not spot that opportunity. In fact, the executives at that company, which was called PTC, the Post Telecommunications Company, actually dismissed the revolution that was about to happen as far as the cell phone is concerned. And he pursued it right to the end and was able to make billions, out of it. So he's one person that I would want us to look at as somebody who was able to understand the forces of change, because when we talk about spotting business opportunities and doing things that are significant, as entrepreneurs, we need to be able to understand the forces of change, right? Probably before everyone has understood those forces of change. That's the first thing that I would want to say. The second thing that I would want to say before I define what an opportunity is a newspaper report that I read. And this was a story coming from Zimbabwe, where the government was urging people probably to do fish farming because there were huge opportunities, there. Here is the thing that I would want to say. When you read in a newspaper and when you listen to somebody saying there is a huge opportunity here, most probably the opportunity is gone. You are too late to the opportunity. So I can almost tell you now, doesn't matter what the government is saying, if you were to go into fish farming in Zimbabwe at this time, unless you identify a niche or you are in a particular territory where there aren't many such businesses, you're not going to make money, right? But the point there is sometimes the mistake that most people make is that they wait until it's too late to get into the opportunity. And when they get into the opportunity, the money has already been made and they are too late, to the opportunity to exploit the opportunity. The other thing that I would want to say, Tafadzo, before I define, because you've asked me to define what an opportunity is just to talk about and to ask a question to all of us who are aspiring business people. Are you noticing any forces of change? Are you noticing things that are changing in our time? And are you decoding that change, right? Because that's the thing. If you are starting a business, particularly a business that will do significant things, a business that is scalable, that is the starting point. We've already spoken about some of those forces of change in our time. For example, artificial intelligence, no doubt, it's a force of change. That, some people, I was reading a report by a CEO of a bank in America. He likened artificial intelligence revolution to the start of the internet. Imagine when, just go back, rewind to that time when the internet was introduced to the world, and suddenly we could do things on the internet, and how that presented opportunities. So he likened artificial intelligence to the internet revolution. I've also read a report where somebody likened the artificial intelligence revolution to the discovery of electricity, right? Some of us are just sitting there and we are not noticing these forces of change. If I look around, I can look at renewable energy, solar. That's a force of change. The world is going green. Nothing can reverse that, at all. Another force of change, which we've spoken about, artificial intelligence. So the question that I would want to ask entrepreneurs is, are you noticing all of these things? And what are you doing, about it? Let's now give a short definition of what an opportunity is. Opportunity is basically a set of circumstances that opens the door for you to, as an entrepreneur, for you to make something that will create value for others, especially value for your customers, so that you may get a profitable return in exchange. So that's what we are talking about. The most important, decision in business is identifying that opportunity, that set of circumstances that opens the door for you to create value for your customers, and in the process of value, for you to get a profitable return in exchange. So to make something that will create value for others, you will need, as an entrepreneur, to invest time, to invest money, to invest attention, and to obviously invest effort, which is very, very important. So let's now make it practical, because you've asked me to define what an opportunity is. Opportunities connect three dots, right? Because I've heard people talking about something that seems to be an opportunity, but it's not necessarily an opportunity. If you want to know whether you spotted a good opportunity or not, an opportunity, connects three dots in my mind. Number one, the first dot is a market. So in an opportunity, the first dot that the opportunity connects is a market. So let's define a market as a big enough audience of people who need or want something from you. So when you spot an opportunity, I gave you an example of Strive and the cell phone revolution. At that time, people were using fixed telephony. There was a huge market, that was available, right? That's the first dot that an opportunity connects. The second thing is a value proposition. So we've got a market, then we've got a value proposition, and let's just define a value proposition as a product or a service that an entrepreneur can offer, which the market needs, right? So you've got a market, you've got a value proposition, and then the third dot is a profitable strategy, right? So that's where you can then make sustainable returns over a period of time. Now, I defined an opportunity as a set of circumstances. I defined an opportunity as a moment where the entrepreneur is able to see the potential, let's just call it conjunction of three things, right? The connection of three dots: a market, a value proposition, and a profitable strategy. Having defined opportunities that way, let's just be clear, because sometimes there is a lot of confusion between ideas and opportunities. Opportunities aren't business ideas, right? So let's distinguish between an idea and an opportunity. The business idea is what you would like to do, right? The opportunity is the reason why this could be a good idea, right? And that's the distinction there. An opportunity isn't a product, it isn't a business idea. It's just a set of circumstances that opens the door to the success of potential ideas, right? So that's what it is. So as an entrepreneur, the opportunity precedes the business idea. There has to be a set of circumstances that opens the door where you will then be able to execute your idea. So let me give you an example. Over the last 60 years or so, more people have moved to cities. So we have seen an opportunity or a trend or a force of change, rural to urban migration. That's a change that we have seen. And that rural to urban migration has dramatically changed the way that people live. So people who live in cities naturally adopt a more sedentary lifestyle. They don't move that much. So there is a very huge opportunity for them to exercise and move around. Right. So that's the opportunity. Once you have spotted that opportunity as an entrepreneur, you then come up with cool ideas, which are aimed at making money out of that opportunities. So, and out of that trend of rural to urban migration, people are sedentary, they are not moving around. Some entrepreneurs then spotted an opportunity and went for it there. So Nike, for example, came up with running shoes. So running was a huge thing in the 60s and so forth. Some people came up with yoga and yoga classes, yoga that, as business ideas to capitalize on an opportunity there. You asked me, Tafazo, to talk about characteristics of opportunities. One characteristic of opportunities is that opportunities don't last forever, right? Opportunities don't last forever. And that's one thing that we need to understand there. There was a time when internet cafes, were opportunities, but changes in technology and culture made them disappear. Film photography, there was a time when it was an opportunity. Video clubs, but things change. So opportunities don't last forever. The other characteristic of opportunities is that opportunities are based on the future. So a good opportunity isn't just about what the market wants now, right? It's about the future. So if an opportunity is going to be worth pursuing to an entrepreneur, that opportunity must have longevity, right? And when I say the opportunity must have longevity, I mean that the entrepreneur must have identified fundamentals that encourage him or her to believe that in the future, the opportunity will be sustained and can actually be exploited profitably, right? So for you to have a sense of whether this opportunity has longevity or not, it will be very important for the entrepreneur to have a deep understanding of fundamentals of the market, fundamentals of the industry, which is something that I would want to go into. Another characteristics of opportunities is that opportunities aren't certain. Sometimes there's quite a lot of uncertainty with opportunities. And when we talk about uncertainty, we are simply talking about risk, right? So in exploiting those opportunities, it means that the entrepreneur would need to take risks, right? And here we're talking about marketing risks, R&D risks, financial risks, competition risks, macro risks, and so forth. Before you can exploit an opportunity, you need to understand that you can't control all the risks, right? So as an entrepreneur, you don't have to control all the risks. You just need to evaluate the risks, and to some extent, de-risk an opportunity by experimenting. I like entrepreneurs that do market studies. I like entrepreneurs before they exploit an opportunity, you do a pilot, you do a sample. And these things help you to learn more about the market, the people that are involved, the competition. And by so doing, you can then de-risk an opportunity, right? Particularly if the opportunity has got several risks. So here is the thing. People sometimes, and I cannot tell you how many times, Tafadzo, I get people coming to me and saying, Themba, I've got an opportunity. Do you want to invest in the opportunity? And this is an entrepreneur who is asking me that question. They want me to commit some money or to assist them. And sometimes I then take them through a process of letting them know that there are risks involved in this opportunity. And sometimes I just want them to give me the confidence that they have evaluated those risks and they've got a de-risking process in place. And what I find most of the time is that people are very interested to pursue an opportunity, but they have not done or have not given much thought to how the opportunity can be de-risked, right? Because entrepreneurship is not about just taking risks, Tafadzo. It's about taking calculated risks. And when we say an entrepreneur is taking a calculated risk, we are basically saying, yes, there are factors that are uncertain. There are things that you will never know, for sure, in terms of what will work and what will not work. But at least, they understand the odds of success, and they've put in process to maximize their chances of success. And they have a process where they are able to remain flexible as they pursue an opportunity. Because in this VUCA world, you cannot be inflexible. You cannot be rigid in pursuing an opportunity, because sometimes as you pursue an opportunity, what you thought would work might not work as well. Opportunities may be influenced, Tafadzo. Opportunities are subjective. Sometimes a good opportunity for you may not be a good one for me. And that's something that we would need to look at. Opportunities require commitment. So going after an opportunity requires an entrepreneur to commit resources. Here we're talking about money, about efforts, about time, and energy. So opportunities require commitment. You know, some people ask me money, ask me questions such as, what are some of the things that banks look at before they can finance a project where somebody wants to pursue an opportunity? One of the things that they look at is, to what extent does the entrepreneur demonstrate skin in the game? In other words, to what extent is the entrepreneur committed to this project? Because that's very, very, important. And the commitment is normally evidenced by the entrepreneur investing time and energy. Opportunities need a dose of focus, right? So for you to exploit opportunities, you need to be focused as an entrepreneur. And sometimes we begin to use the word niche. Sometimes I see entrepreneurs who are not focused. They want to pursue 10 ideas at the same time. They want to pursue 3 opportunities at the same time. Focus is about setting priorities, avoiding getting distracted by other options. The greatest advice that I give to an entrepreneur who is considering a number of opportunities is choose one opportunity, right? Choose one idea to focus on, right? So you can't be selling sweets, and then as you are selling sweets, you are also involved in a transport business. And as you are involved in a transport business, you are also consulting. Entrepreneurs who are like that don't succeed most of the time, right? So some people think that it's diversifying their income stream. No, no, no. When you are beginning a business, you focus on something. And then once the business has been scaled up, you then start diversifying. So focus comes before diversification. Focus is about setting priorities. It's about avoiding getting distracted by other options. So when you see an opportunity, you must, as an entrepreneur, make the choice to allocate resources to that project and say no to all the other possible opportunities. And that's the essence of what strategy means. If I want to assess whether your strategy as an entrepreneur will work, one of the things that I'm looking for is focus. Are you focused? What is the niche? What is the focus that you have decided to pursue there? Opportunities may be hard to see. And this is something that we will talk about probably next week, Tafadzwa. Spotting opportunities is about how you look at things, right? And it, it's very, very important there. I hope I have defined what an opportunity is and what the characteristics of an opportunity. I've also tried to distinguish between a business idea and an opportunity. Tafadzu, over to you.
Thank you very much for that insight. Tendai says it seems an opportunity is time sensitive, yet you need to assess the risk element. How do you juggle around that? If you delay, you might be beaten to it.
Yes, that's why sometimes in business we come up with the term first mover advantage. So the term first mover advantage is normally given to those players that are first to exploit an opportunity. And when they exploit an opportunity, they create economies of scale. And people who are led to exploit the opportunity may not be as successful as those people. And so Tendai is very, very right from that point of view. There is a time window. when it comes to opportunity, which is why one of the the ingredients of success in running a business is the speed of execution. The speed of execution. In business, it's not whether you can execute or not, it's the speed with which you execute, right? And that becomes very, very important. If you are learning to run a business, you haven't gone to school, here is how I will coach you. Be fast in executing, because the speed of execution is one of the ingredients of success, right? So on the one hand, speed of execution is very important, but on the other hand, we also need to take calculated risks, right? What is calculated risks? Calculated risk is basically experience. And this is one thing that I would want Tendai to know. Sometimes you see somebody who makes decisions fast and they execute fast, and you're wondering, where did they learn all this stuff? Does this person not take time to analyze things? The reason why they are able to do that is that they have been burnt in the past. That's why entrepreneurs who start a business and fail, when the next opportunity comes, they have learned and they are able to execute faster. So when we talk about this concept of taking calculated risk, just bear in mind that there is no way you can take calculated risk unless you have learned from experience. As an entrepreneur, you must never be fearful of failure. You must always know that every time you fail, it's an opportunity for you to learn something. I was giving Strive Masiwa as an example of a person who has built a huge business in Zimbabwe. He has been able to build global businesses out of Zimbabwe. But what's interesting about this guy is that the first business that he started, and I still remember the name of that business, it's called Retrofit. It was a construction company. That business actually went belly up. It collapsed. Strive could have said, look, I'm a terrible business person. Let me just stop this thing. Let me not go into business, because he actually had one opportunity to work for a corporate, and the only corporate that he worked on was the PTC, which was the government-owned telecommunications company, in Zimbabwe. And then at the age of 25, he then, started his construction company, which collapsed, and he went belly up. But he was able to spot an opportunity. And the reason why he then moved fast and execute on that opportunity, it's actually because he had learned some things, right? So failure is not bad for an entrepreneur. Some of the entrepreneurs we have spotted big opportunities, were able to do that because they had experience and they were able to take calculated risk. So if you hear an opportunity, an entrepreneur who is able to execute fast, it's because they have learned, they have got experience. The other thing that I would want to say, which is very, very important, and this speaks to risk, which is the point that Tendai is saying there. The thing about risk is that it's about experience. Sometimes people overanalyze things, and that analysis results in paralysis. You are looking at an opportunity, you do a business plan, then you analyze this. My experience is that overanalysis results in paralysis. So one of the reasons why People sometimes, and this this applies to people with PhDs and people who are educated. Have you noticed, Tafadzo, that some of the entrepreneurs that are hugely successful in this world are people who have not necessarily gone to school? You know, people who have gone to school and who have PhDs sometimes are not as successful as an entrepreneur who just says, look, at least I know what the risk is, let's go for it, right? Because if you overanalyze things, if you overanalyze an opportunity, if you overanalyze the risks that are involved in an opportunity, sometimes it results in paralysis and you don't go anywhere. So here is the thing, and this is what I'm saying. I'm not an advocate of somebody who just spots an opportunity and then they jump into it without analysis. All right, I'm not an advocate of that. Neither am I an advocate of somebody who spends days and years analyzing an opportunity. By the time you are done with your analysis, the world has changed because things are changing. There is something that I read in a report, Tafadzo, and that thing was what used to happen in decades, right, in terms of changes, is now happening in a matter of months, right? In fact, I will get that report and probably present it in one of our shows, Tafadzo. What that person was able to show was that in terms of the quantum of change that we are experiencing, the change that we have seen, say, in the past year, you know, is comparable to the change that people in the other century before us actually saw in 50 years. So we are seeing in 1 month, in terms of change, what other people saw in terms of change in 50 years. So it's a rapidly changing world. And that's the point that I would want to highlight here, that it's a very rapidly changing world. So I spoke about the concept of VUCA, VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. That's the business world that we are executing these ideas, you know, in Tafadzo.
Thank you for that clarity. Tendai says focusing and diversifying seem to contradict. Can you then put your eggs in one basket? I will try to explain that my understanding to Tendai. For example, like I'm an author. I think what Temba is saying, instead of me starting being an author, speaker, consultant, and maybe have other avenues, other streams of income from my authorship, I first need to be an established author. And in scaling up, then I start diversifying, because if I am, for example, if I want to be a speaker and writer, there must be, the book must be known out there first. So I need to first get my hands on that as an author, then diversify. But if I can't start by doing 10 things. So I think that's where that was my understanding, that start by doing one thing. When you have established and you're doing it well, then you add other avenues. Temba will correct that, but that was my understanding, that on the focusing and diversifying, that you start by one thing, you do it well, then you add other avenues or maybe other streams of income. I also saw on the other author of the book that we are focusing on, they say he has done, he produces high-level quality t-shirts. And I was thinking to myself, there are many people who have started the business, especially the branding, and they haven't done well. And I was even thinking to myself, I don't know that brand of that author, but they're saying men love it. Maybe because I live with a man who's not into brands. But as an opportunity, maybe someone may say, I've tried to do a t-shirt business and I didn't go anywhere. Yet there are others who've done it, and they may not be known. Maybe that author's brand is well known worldwide. I may just be the only one who doesn't know it. And you also mentioned about, like, if you want to start a fish business now, like in Zim, you won't make it because probably it's saturated. How important is it for an entrepreneur to have an opportunity mindset? Because sometimes we try something and it doesn't work, and it affects your mindset because you try to pursue an opportunity, and already you're limited because probably you didn't do well, or maybe you joined the opportunity a bit late. I think at some point we tried network marketing. And one thing that you would realize with network marketing, maybe those who would have started, the leaders did well. But the time you join, maybe it's, yeah, the opportunity has passed its phase. So it doesn't mean that the opportunity is bad, but probably you have joined when it's a bit too late. How important is an opportunity mindset? You can also just clarify if my example to Tendai was not very correct.
So you're spot on, Tafadzo. I will not add to what you have already said. You totally spot on in terms of defining what focus is all about. But let me move on to your question. How important is an opportunity mindset? It's very, very important. There is a Chinese proverb, Tafadzo, that says, when the winds of change blow, some people build walls to keep the winds away. Others build windmills to generate electricity and to generate other things. So the wind is the same wind that is blowing. Some people are seeing risk, other people are seeing opportunities. That's why people build, windmills. Let me give you another example. You were talking about t-shirts just now, Tafadzo. Last week, I was listening to an entrepreneur who has started a business for t-shirts specifically for children. And this t-shirt has got this technology which is able to limit the ultraviolet light. You know how sometimes what do we put on our children? This cream that we put because we don't want them to develop skin cancers, especially if they are playing in the sunlight. There is cream that we put on them, so that they don't develop cancer. What this person has done is that they've designed a t-shirt which exactly accomplished the same thing, because you need to protect the entire body of the child instead of just putting cream. Then they design a t-shirt that keeps the ultraviolet rays of the sun out. And I thought that was a wonderful innovation. So in later shows, one of the things that we'll be talking about is innovation. So it's very, very important, that we understand that for you to spot in opportunities, you need to put in place a process of innovation there. So your way of thinking, which is what we are calling the opportunity mindset, will influence what you are able to see, right? Because the difference between somebody who's got an opportunity mindset and somebody who doesn't have an opportunity mindset is what they are able to see. So they are experiencing the same wind. Another person sees risk, they go and build a wall. Another person says, oh, this is an opportunity for us to generate electricity because there is so much wind, here. So your way of thinking, is able to influence what you see, right? For example, there are so many people, when wars are being fought, they are seeing the world falling apart. Other people are seeing opportunities to disrupt markets. You know, that's why the pace of change is increasing in our time, because there is always an entrepreneur who's got an opportunity mindset and is looking at disrupting certain trends. So it doesn't matter whether you're an investor or you're an entrepreneur, right? Because remember, for us to bridge this inequality gap that we spoke about, you either need to be an investor or you need to be an entrepreneur. So for you to be successful as an investor and an entrepreneur, you need to adopt an opportunity mindset. To me, it's about being curious. It's about being rigorous. It's about being quick to respond and being, proactive to try new things. So what is an opportunity mindset? Number one, you are curious, right? You're very, very curious about the forces of change that are happening in our time, right? Somebody is looking at it and seeing disaster, but you are curious and saying, could there be an opportunity, in here? But you're also rigorous, right? What do I mean by rigorous? You essentially look at the fundamentals. So rigor in assessing an opportunity is looking at fundamentals. Will this opportunity stay forever? Or is it a passing trend that will disappear? You need the rigor to assess that. And, that rigor may help you to try out, new things. You also need the rigor to assess the risks. So an opportunity mindset is one that is curious. It's one that is rigorous, right? But it's also one that is quick to respond. Speed of execution is very, very important, but it's one that is, proactively trying new things, to disrupt. One of the things that, businesses need to do these days, because the pace of change is very rapid, is try new things. Research and development, is very, and it is that mindset that will enable an entrepreneur to see things that other people are not seeing, right? So we are all experiencing the same thing, but we don't have the the mindset there. It's about proactively experimenting. It's about having a prepared mind, right? There is a proverb. Is it a proverb or it's a quote from this French scientist, Louis Pasteur, who said, chance favors the prepared mind. To spot and pursue an opportunity, it's very important to find yourself in the right place at the right time, for the right reason, right? For that, you must be ready to make a move when needed, right? So chance favors the prepared mind. Have you ever heard somebody who says, but you were lucky? You might actually look at Strive and say, Strive was lucky. No, he wasn't lucky. Never say to an entrepreneur, you were lucky, right? Because sometimes people, see themselves as unlucky. You were born when the opportunity had passed. You need to have a prepared mind. That's what it is. You need to be, you need to have the ability to experiment and gradually de-risk, opportunity. You need to build some kind of flexibility in your decision-making process. You need to have the guts to go after opportunity. And the opportunity, yes, will change, will evolve, and that will require you to reinvent yourself in the future. You need to keep your eyes wide open. You know what is changing in the lives of your customers. You know, that's what an opportunity mindset is all about, Tafadzo.
We had a question, where do opportunities come from? But I think since we're having a part 2, we would carry it over to the next show. Because of our time, what are any concluding comments from you, Themba? And how can people get hold of you?
So I've got 3 concluding, thoughts, Tafadzo. The first is that we live in a time of great opportunity. We live in a time of great opportunity. The second thought is that chance favors the prepared mind. For you to exploit this opportunity that we're talking about, you need to be prepared. You need to have an opportunity mindset, which is very, very important. We spoke about many things today, but one of the things that I would want to really emphasize is, speed of execution. That to me is very, very important for an entrepreneur. If anybody wants to get hold of me, the easiest way is to do it via LinkedIn. Just, type in Themba Duplex Mazibuko. That's the easiest way to get hold of me, Tafadzo. Thanks.